Let's head to the phone lines and welcome in Nikki Chavanelle from hogbeat.com and Rivals. Nikki, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you enjoying the snowpocalypse that's been happening all week?
Well, I really, really hated it when it was icy, but the snow has a magical quality to it that makes you, kind of forgive it a little bit for being so cold.
It sure makes things brighter, doesn't it? When we left the studio yesterday, I was like, I need my sunglasses, but give it a few days and then it's going to be all muddy and mushy. And,
yeah.
You bring that up, and I'm curious if we had you on like on a Thursday, because we talked about earlier in the show. More snow's coming, and more. I think the last I saw was like 6 to 8 more inches of snow. So I'm curious how our views of the snow being magical, which I agree, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm curious how our opinions will change when it gets here, like Thursday or Friday.
Well, I didn't stock up on food that much, so I'm sure, it'll wear off in a few days. But I've never seen. I mean, this amount was comparable earlier in the winter, I remember, but once it adds to it, I'm not sure I've ever seen that much snow before.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Same thing with the low temperatures. I don't think I've ever seen temperatures this low.
Which you transition that into you, Nikki, because you came from Texas originally before you came to Arkansas. Which, have you ever been in this type of cold before? I've never seen it. And me and Maddie T were talking about it. Never seen it this cold before here.
No, I haven't. I think I went to New Mexico skiing one year, and there was a storm one night, and it was really, really cold. But for consistent multiple days in a row, no, this is definitely the coldest I've ever been in, but I'm not going outside much. Luckily, so. I
don't blame you. Don't blame me at all. Got lots of stuff we want to talk with you about, Nikki. First off, let's talk about the 4-star commit that is committed to the Razorbacks for the class of 2022. That is Rashod Dubinion. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name, Brian. Regardless, though, however I mispronounce his name, this is a stud that Sam Pittman and this staff got for class of 2022.
Yeah, that's how you say it, Rashod Dubinion. I caught up with his coach the other day, and he just sounds like a really great kid, and he loves football. So, sounds like they're getting the guy that's going to be invested when he gets here. Very focused. He's the number 4 ranked all-purpose back, so he can line up in the slot as well. And if you look at the guys, ranked above him, you have an Oklahoma commit, and then you have Trevor Etienne, who is, the younger brother of Travis Etienne from Clemson. So he's among, the top backs in the nation, and it's a huge get for Jimmy Smith. He was the head coach at Cedar Grove, where Dubinion plays now, and he had won state championships there. And then his defensive coordinator took over that team, and so the relationship has very easily transitioned. And his coach, I think was pushing for Rashod to pick Arkansas and then Coach Jimmy Smith because of that relationship. So really, really good get. I don't think they're done at the position. I do think they'll have room for an in-state prospect perhaps at the position. So I think it's just a really good starting point.
Do you think that this type of a player, being a 4-star guy, which from time to time, Arkansas will pull in a 5-star kid, whether it be an in-state kid or something like that, but being a 4-star kid and the 4th-ranked player among all-purpose backs, is this the type of player that maybe on the offensive side of recruiting that Sam Pittman, Jimmy Smith, and this staff can build around?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, if he hadn't had such a good relationship with Coach Jimmy Smith, I really don't think you get a player like this early, especially. Mm-hmm. Now you have a player that you can show to other recruits as one of your commits, and it kind of sets the tone for the level of recruiting you want to be at. So, I definitely think they can build around him, and, they still have to find a quarterback, so having a weapon like that is a nice piece to show a signal caller what he has to work with when he gets here.
Going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun tracking this thing all throughout the spring and summer once we get the snow off the ground. Let's transition over to basketball for a second. And obviously, we talked about it just a moment ago with the men's team being ranked 24th in the country. And Musselman said during his last press conference with the media that the team's not necessarily worried about the ranking, just focused solely on Florida and what's upcoming. And, Nikki, that's probably the best mindset for this team right now, because one loss it's not going to jeopardize maybe an NCAA tournament bid, but one loss could really set this team back as far as going from a 5-6 seed to an 8 or 9 seed, which is where you don't want to be.
Yeah, it's a real seed game that could change where they end up in the tournament. So definitely a dangerous Florida team, a lot of different weapons, and they need to have a big night after just getting ranked. The last thing they want and that Arkansas fans want is to have that hype of the top 25 ranking and then to immediately lose it, because it took them so long to gain that respect to get there.
How do you see this team? We've talked about this a little bit with the favorable schedule for the rest of the year, but you got Florida coming in, you go to A&M, you still have Alabama, LSU, where you look to hopefully try to maybe split one of those games, probably LSU. How do you see this team finishing down the stretch? What we think is a favorable schedule with solid games on the road, but you get your toughest games inside Bud Walton Arena.
Yeah, I think they could win at least 4 games, maybe 5, but, you have Alabama is a really, really strong program. LSU can be up and down and predictable. But overall, I think they're getting in a groove to where they could actually play deep into the SEC tournament, which I didn't think was the case a few weeks ago.
It's going to be interesting to tell me about. Nikki Chavanelle joining us here on Halftime. Got a couple more minutes here with Nikki. Outside of Razorback Nation, if you look throughout the college football world, Gus Malzahn made a lot of news yesterday, signing on and being the new head coach with Central Florida. How do you translate this move for him, going from an SEC school to probably one of the best group of 5 schools that's out there in Central Florida?
That was a great deal for Central Florida.
Exactly.
I don't know. It makes so much sense for them. I think he's going to do a great job recruiting down there. They have a lot of, I think they're just finishing up like a new facility and stuff. So they have a lot of draws to that program, and I'm excited to see who he brings in as his offensive coordinator for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun to see this guy and how he translates. All right, last couple things I want to ask you here, and I've been anxious to talk to you about this because I know you're a Houston Texans fan coming from Texas. What are the Houston Texans doing releasing J.J. Watt and not trying to trade him and get something back in return for arguably the face of their franchise? Yeah, I'm really not sure what happened there. I don't know the logic behind it. I don't know if it's something that contractually, like, they get some kind of benefit that we don't know about. But I'm sure they could have gotten something for him, so I'm not sure what they were doing. Oh,
I knew as soon as the news broke, I was like, Nicky cannot be happy about this move. So it's going to be I'm curious to see where he ends up. Selfishly, I hope he ends up as a Dallas Cowboy, just go right up the freeway and head to Dallas. But a lot of rumors are circulating that he could be heading to Pittsburgh, or the newest rumor that I've seen on Twitter before we got you on, him heading to the Cleveland Browns.
I think Pittsburgh would be the most interesting. I'd like to see him play with his brothers. I think it's a fun storyline and gets him closer to home as well. It
really would. Last thing I want to touch on with you here, you're going to be joining Ty on his Trust in the Process podcast coming up this week. Are you prepared for what Ty has in store for you? Because I noticed a nice back and forth between you two, because it looked like he scoured your social media channels to tease the news that you're going to be joining his podcast.
I am not prepared, but I'm excited to just roll with it.
It'll be a lot of fun. You can see that podcast on the Hit That Line podcast network, presented by Breeden RV, and that is the one and the only Nikki Chavanelle. Joins us every Tuesday here on Halftime.